Have you ever looked up at the sky and noticed how the moon changes shape every night? Ever wondered why? And how? Well, as we often see, the shape of the moon is always changing. Sometimes as clear as a disk, sometimes half empty, sometimes curved like a crescent. So why does the moon change when it's round and when it's waning? Let's discover the answer right now. As we know, our natural satellite rotates on its own, but it also revolves around the planet continuously. More or less about 27.3 days to go around the Earth. Therefore, depending on where we find it with respect to our planet and its orientation ratio with respect to the Sun, cyclic changes occur in the way we see it. Like all planets and other lunar bodies in the solar system, the moon does not emit its own light. It reflects sunlight. The percentage of the moon's illumination in the sky changes as the shapes follow one another. It starts with 0% illumination at the new moon. That is, we cannot observe anything in the sky. It was as if the moon had disappeared from our sky. As the different phases played out, the illumination rate increased until it reached 100% on the full moon day. Each phase of the moon lasts about 7.4 days. This means that every week of the month we will have the moon in one shape. Since the moon's orbit is elliptical, the time and shape are different. In general, all phases of the moon with more light last 14.77 days, and so do those darker phases. The phases of the moon are regulated by the moon's position relative to the Sun and the Earth. Before we begin to describe the phases of the moon, it is important to emphasize that the phases we are about to name are just one way to perceive the moon from where we are on Earth. At the same time, two observers in different locations on Earth can see the moon differently. Nothing further from reality. An observer in the northern hemisphere would be able to see the moon with a right-to-left movement and a left-to-right movement in the southern hemisphere. It is possible that in Spain we have a full moon, while in the United States it is a full or waning moon. It all depends on where on Earth we see the moon from. Having clarified this, we begin to describe the different phases of the moon. During the phases that the moon goes through, from new to full, the satellite moves 180 degrees from its orbit. In the dark universe, the moon relies on reflections of sunlight, so we can see it. As the moon orbits the Earth, its position relative to the Sun and Earth is constantly changing. When it moves between the Earth and the Sun, the side of the moon facing the Earth is not illuminated by the Sun, so we didn't see it at that time. It is the first day of the month. During this phase, it runs from 0 to 45 degrees. We can only see 0 to 2% of the moon when it is new. Over the next 2 to 3 days, the moon turns an angle in its orbit. Its edge facing the Earth is gradually illuminated by the Sun, so we see a waxing crescent in the sky. We can find the moon coming out 3 or 4 days after the new moon. Depending on where we are on Earth, we will see it from one side or the other of the sky. If we are in the northern hemisphere, we will see it from the right side, and if we are in the southern hemisphere, we will see it on the left side. During this phase of the moon, it can be observed after sunset. Therefore, it moves from 45 to 90 degrees of its orbit during this period. The odds of being able to see the moon on this tour is 3 to 34%. The moon turns an angle in its orbit. Its edge facing the Earth is gradually illuminated by the sun, so we see a crescent moon in the sky. From then on, the moon continued to revolve around the Earth. The side it directed towards the Earth was illuminated by the sun more and more, so the crescent piece became more and more fat gradually. Wait until August 7th to 8th. The half of the moon facing the Earth is illuminated by the sun, so at night we see a bright half moon, called the first quarter moon. During this period, it moves from 90 to 135 degrees of orbit, and we can see it illuminated from 35 to 65%. After the lunar eclipse, the moon gradually moves to the opposite side of the sun. Then the side of the moon facing the Earth is increasingly illuminated by the sun, so we see the moon getting rounder and rounder. The area is more than half illuminated. It sets before dawn and reaches its highest peak in the sky at dusk. The part of the moon that is visible is between 66 and 96%. By the time the moon is completely full, half of the moon faces the Earth. It is completely illuminated by the sun at an angle of 180 degrees, so we see a full moon, also known as a full moon. During this phase, 97 to 100% of the moon can be seen. After the full moon, the side of the moon facing the Earth has a part gradually not illuminated by the sun, so we see the moon thinner gradually. On the 17th or 18th, only half moon can be seen in the sky, which is the waning moon. From the third quarter, the moon continues to thin. After 4 to 5 days, only the crescent shape remains. Then the moon completely disappeared to start a new moon phase. The moon takes more than 27.32 days to complete one revolution around the Earth. However, a lunar month, from one new moon to the next, is 29.5 days, because that's how long it takes for the moon to return to its position between the sun and the Earth. To determine the phases of the moon in the northern hemisphere, keep in mind the D-O-C rule. The moon always obeys the same rules of illumination, so you can use the shape of the letters D, O, and C to identify the first quarter and third quarter. In the first half of the month, the moon looks like a D. When it's full, it looks like an O. And at the end of the month, the moon looks like a C. A crescent-shaped moon like an inverted C is a gradually full moon. A waning moon with the shape of a D is a gradually full moon. A waning moon with an inverted D shape is a waning moon. A crescent-shaped moon like the letter C is a waning moon. Different parts of the moon are illuminated during the full and waning phases of the moon. In the northern hemisphere, the illuminated portion of the moon will grow from right to left until the moon is full, and then get smaller from right to left. A full moon, high waning moon, will be illuminated on the right side, and a waning moon, low waning moon, will be illuminated on the left side. Raise your right hand with your thumb facing out, palm facing the sky. The thumb and other fingers form an arc like an inverted C. If the moon matches this arc, it is a first quarter moon. When you repeat this movement with your left hand and the moon matches the C shape, it's the third quarter moon. Identifying lunar phases in the southern hemisphere. In contrast to the moon viewed from the northern hemisphere, the moon viewed from the southern hemisphere will be illuminated from left to right, become full, and then fade from left to right. The first quarter moon is illuminated on the right. The third quarter moon is illuminated on the left. Raise your right hand with your thumb facing out, palm facing the sky. The thumb and other fingers form an inverted C-shaped arc. If the moon fits this arc, it's a third moon. If you repeat this movement with your left hand, and the moon matches the arc of the letter C, then it is the first quarter. Remember the rule of C-O-D. The moon viewed in the southern hemisphere will go through all of the same phases as we see in the northern hemisphere, but the order of the letters will be reversed. A crescent-shaped moon like the letter C is a full moon. A crescent moon with an inverted D-shaped moon is a gradually full moon. The full moon is O-shaped. A waning moon with the shape of a D is a waning moon. A crescent-shaped moon like an inverted C is a waning moon. That's all the information for the question, why does the moon always change shape? Did you find it interesting after watching this video? If you find this video useful, please click like and subscribe to our channel for support. See you in the next video. Bye bye.